The 90-day identity shift. You are not stuck because you lack money, talent, or opportunity. You are stuck because the person you are right now is completely incompatible with the life you are begging for. In the next few minutes, I am going to hand you a precise 90-day psychological protocol that will ruthlessly destroy your old self and force the physical world to yield to a completely new you. Do not look away. If you are exhausted from setting the same goals year after year and failing, this is the invisible master key that will alter your destiny forever. Listen closely. If you are finally ready to bury the version of you that accepts mediocrity and fear, if you feel a fire waking up inside your chest demanding more from this fleeting life, then hit that subscribe button and leave a like right now, because the journey we are starting today will require a soul that refuses to surrender. There is a pervasive and catastrophic illusion that has captured the minds of millions who desperately seek to change their lives. It is the belief that transformation is born through the sheer brute force of habit modification. Everywhere you look, the masses are obsessively focused on the surface of their existence. They download productivity planners, they meticulously track their morning routines, they attempt to wake up at the crack of dawn, and they try to bolt the daily schedules of millionaires onto their own chaotic lives. Yet, despite all this exhausting effort, the vast majority experience nothing but a temporary spike in motivation, followed by a humiliating, inevitable collapse back to their original state. This tragic cycle repeats year after year, leaving them completely demoralized and quietly convinced that they are simply incapable of greatness. Why does this happen? It happens because they are attempting to alter the trajectory of their lives by attacking the symptoms while completely ignoring the disease. Habits are not the root of your reality. They are merely the branches. And the root of everything you do, everything you tolerate, and everything you achieve is your deeply held self-image. Imagine a man who owns an apple tree but desperately wishes to harvest peaches. In his misguided determination, he buys orange paint and carefully coats the leaves. He prunes the branches to look different. He ties artificial peaches to the limbs, steps back, and convinces himself he has fundamentally changed the nature of the tree. To any rational observer, this is absolute madness. The root is an apple tree, and as long as the root remains unaltered, the tree will eventually push past the cosmetic alterations and produce exactly what its nature dictates: more apples. The human mind operates on an identical, unyielding law. Your behaviors, your financial habits, your work ethic, and your emotional reactions are the fruit. Your identity is the root. You cannot paint the leaves of your life with temporary positive habits and expect to produce a different destiny. If your internal self-image is that of a struggler, a victim, or a person who never quite finishes what they start, no amount of behavioral modification will save you. The reason behavioral change fails so predictably is rooted in the architecture of your subconscious mind. Your subconscious acts as a flawless, highly sophisticated cybernetic mechanism, much like a thermostat in a home. Its primary overriding function is to maintain absolute harmony between your physical reality and your internal identity. If the psychological thermostat is set to 60 degrees and you bring a space heater into the room representing a sudden burst of willpower and new habits, the temperature will temporarily rise. You will feel the momentum. You will think you have finally broken through. But the thermostat will immediately sense this deviation from its programmed setting. It will trigger the air conditioning to forcefully cool the room back down to 60 degrees. In human terms, this cooling process is called self-sabotage. If you secretly believe you are unworthy of wealth, but you manage to accumulate a sudden sum of money through extreme physical effort, your subconscious mind will view this success as a threat to your identity. It will induce anxiety, poor decisions, and reckless behavior until that money is gone, safely returning you to the financial panic that matches your internal normal. You can never outwork, out-hustle, or out-earn your self-image. Willpower is a function of the conscious mind, and willpower is finite. It depletes when you are tired, unstressed, or emotionally drained. Identity, however, is a function of the subconscious mind, and it operates effortlessly, flawlessly, 24 hours a day without ever growing fatigued. When you try to change your habits without changing your identity, you are initiating a war between your conscious desires and your subconscious programming. It is a war you will lose every single time. To achieve permanent transformation, you must abandon the exhausting charade of behavior modification. You must stop trying to act differently and begin the profound inner work of demanding to actually be someone else entirely. When you successfully alter the foundational blueprint of who you are, everything else falls into place with breathtaking ease. A true master does not struggle to adopt the habits of success. Those habits are the natural, effortless byproduct of their identity. Stop attacking the branches. Strike at the root. Change the core identity, and the habits will automatically and inevitably follow. There is a silent, infallible law that governs every living thing on this earth, yet the masses consistently ignore it to their own devastating detriment. It is the universal law of gestation. If you plant a grain of wheat into fertile soil, nature dictates that a specific non-negotiable period of time must pass before that seed transforms into a physical harvest. The master farmer understands that during this gestation period, the seed must remain buried in the dark, entirely unseen, silently undergoing a violent and miraculous transmutation. The farmer does not stand over the soil on the 4th day and scream at the dirt, demanding a harvest. He does not dig up the seed on the 12th day out of panic or frustration to see if it is growing, because he knows with absolute certainty that premature interference will instantly kill the fragile life taking form below the surface. Yet, when it comes to the human mind and the cultivation of a new destiny, people act with a staggering lack of this fundamental wisdom. They plant the fragile seed of a new identity on a Monday, and by Friday, when their bank account and external circumstances have not magically transformed, they declare the process a failure, dig up the seed, and return to the comforting misery of their old lives. The human subconscious operates on the exact same law of gestation as the soil of the earth. You cannot erase decades of fear, poverty consciousness, limitations, and self-doubt with a fleeting weekend of positive thinking or a temporary burst of motivation. To completely overwrite a deeply entrenched psychological paradigm, to literally rewire the neurological architecture of your brain and the spiritual frequency of your soul, requires a precise and unbroken crucible of time. That crucible is exactly 90 days. 90 days is not a randomly selected motivational time frame. It is the biological and psychological threshold required to starve an old neural pathway to death and forge a new one into permanent automatic existence. Anything less than 90 days is merely a temporary fluctuation in your mood. It is a weak spark that will inevitably be extinguished by the cold winds of your habitual environment. But 90 days of relentless, emotionally charged, unyielding focus is a roaring fire that incinerates the old self and permanently alters the landscape of your mind. The great tragedy is that the vast majority of people quit somewhere in the middle of this dark gestation period. Around day 20 or day 40, the initial enthusiasm evaporates. The physical world has not yet caught up to the internal vision, and the terrifying illusion of stagnation sets in. The mind begins to whisper its venomous lies, suggesting that you are wasting your time, that you are fooling yourself, and that nothing is actually changing. What these individuals fail to realize is that underneath the surface of their reality, massive invisible shifts are taking place. The roots of the new identity are desperately trying to anchor themselves into the depths of the subconscious. When you surrender to doubt and break your focus on day 60, you are pulling the seed out of the ground just moments before it was destined to break through the soil. You abort the miracle right before its birth. To survive this 90-day crucible, your commitment must be absolute and unbroken. You cannot hold your new identity for 5 days, take the weekend off to indulge in your old destructive habits, and expect the gestation to continue. The subconscious mind requires continuous, uninterrupted, emotionally saturated instructions. Every single day, you must hold the mental image of your new self. You must feel the reality of it in your bones. You must walk, speak, and make decisions as if the transformation is already physically manifested. As you push through the resistance week after week, the internal friction will gradually subside. The effort required to hold the vision will diminish. And when you successfully cross the threshold of that 90th day, a profound and irreversible transmutation occurs. The new identity ceases to be something you are consciously practicing. It becomes who you effortlessly are. The seed breaks the soil, the old paradigm is permanently shattered, and the external world is forced to instantly reorganize itself to match the new, undeniable master you have come. There is a devastating misconception that blinds the ambitious and paralyzes the hopeful. It is the comforting, uncowardly belief that personal transformation is a process of accumulation. The masses approach their personal evolution as if they are adding new furniture to a decaying, termite-infested house. They believe they can simply acquire the wealth, the confidence, and the prestige they desire while simultaneously holding tightly to the comforts, the excuses, and the relationships of their current average existence. They want to bolt the armor of a conqueror onto the fragile frame of a coward. They demand the harvest of a king while stubbornly defending the mindset of a peasant. But the universe does not deal in addition. It deals in sacrifice. If you genuinely intend to step into a life of extraordinary power and unyielding abundance, you must confront the most terrifying, non-negotiable law of personal manifestation. True transformation is not a process of addition. It is a process of absolute ruthless destruction. You cannot negotiate a peace treaty between the person you currently are and the person you are destined to become. The two identities cannot coexist in the same vessel. The fears that keep you safe, the rationalizations that justify your daily procrastination, the desperate need for validation from small-minded peers, the stories you tell yourself about why you have not yet succeeded. All of these are the vital organs of your old self. If you attempt to drag this decaying corpse into your desired future, its dead weight will drag you straight to the bottom of the abyss. Most people fail to achieve their dreams not because they lack the capacity for greatness, but because they are entirely unwilling to pay the price of admission. And the absolute price of admission is the deliberate, conscious, and permanent execution of the identity you currently inhabit. Something has to die. The old you must be starved of oxygen so the new you can finally breathe. Consider the profound arrogance of believing you can cheat this law. You cannot carry the timid, hesitating, easily offended version of yourself into an arena of titans and expect to command respect. And you cannot cling to the associates who mock your ambitions and simultaneously cultivate the vibrational frequency of limitless wealth. You must make a choice. A man cannot serve two masters, and a human mind cannot serve two identities. When you attempt to straddle the chasm between your history and your destiny, you tear yourself apart. Your subconscious mind becomes paralyzed by contradictory commands, receiving orders for victory while being anchored by the emotional gravity of defeat. You must realize that your current self, the one absorbing these words, was constructed by your past traumas, your childhood conditioning, and the restrictive limits of your previous environments. That identity was designed purely for survival, not for conquest. It has kept you safe, but its safety has become your most oppressive prison. To cross the threshold into true mastery, you must stand before the mirror of your own soul and willingly sever the emotional ties to your weaknesses. This is not a gentle, poetic awakening. It is a violent, necessary severing. It requires the profound courage to look at your favorite excuses, the ones that have comforted you on cold nights, and recognize them as the poison they truly are. It requires you to burn the bridge behind you so thoroughly that retreat becomes a physical and psychological impossibility. History teaches us that when a conquering general lands on hostile shores, the first command he issues is to burn the ships. When the ships are reduced to ash, the army has no choice but to advance. You must burn the ships of your old identity. When you feel the familiar magnetic pull to complain, to shrink, or to settle for less, you must recognize that urge as the dying gasp of a ghost. You must look at it coldly, and you must refuse to resuscitate it. This psychological death is undeniably painful. You will feel a profound sense of loss. You will grieve the comfortable mediocrity you leave behind, for it is human nature to mourn even the chains that bound us. But from the ashes of that necessary destruction rises something magnificent. When the old self is finally starved of attention and emotion, an immense, unblemished space is created within your consciousness. And into that void steps the supreme architect of your new reality. Unburdened by the ghosts of the past, untouched by the limitations of history, the new you emerges with crystal clarity and terrifying power. Do not shrink from the fire. Step willingly into the flames of your own evolution. Let the weak, hesitating version of you burn to ash, and allow the universe to witness the unstoppable force that walks out of the inferno. There is a dangerous, unromanticized myth surrounding personal transformation that must be violently shattered before you can achieve true mastery. The masses are sold the illusion that stepping into a new identity will be a joyful, euphoric journey, paved with daily inspiration and effortless progress. Nothing could be further from the truth. When you initiate the 90-day identity shift, you are not embarking on a peaceful retreat. You are declaring an act of all-out psychological war. For decades, your subconscious mind has carefully constructed and protected your current identity. It operates on the law of absolute preservation, fiercely defending the familiar, even if the familiar is absolute misery. The moment you attempt to overwrite this deeply entrenched paradigm, your mind will not applaud your ambition. It will violently and ruthlessly rebel against you. And you must anticipate this rebellion. You must understand its mechanics, and you must prepare to face the most treacherous enemy you will ever encounter, your own conditioned mind fighting for its survival. When the rebellion begins, the subconscious will unleash a terrifying arsenal designed specifically to break your will and force your retreat. It will not just attack you with negative thoughts. It will attack your very biology. You will experience sudden, inexplicable waves of profound physical fatigue. A dense fog will descend upon your mind, clouding your vision and paralyzing your focus. You will be struck by sudden spikes of anxiety, panic, and an overwhelming, desperate urge to return to the safety of your old habits. The subconscious will whisper perfectly crafted, logically sound rationalizations into your ear, convincing you that your new vision is impossible, that you are being delusional, and that you should just accept your lot in life. It will use your past failures as irrefutable evidence against your future success. This is the mechanism of resistance operating at its highest capacity, desperately trying to pull you back into the gravitational orbit of mediocrity. The resistance will not remain confined to your internal world. It will inevitably spill over into your external environment. This is the phase where the physical universe tests the authenticity of your demand. Just as you commit to this new identity, everything around you will seem to fall apart. Unexpected financial emergencies will arise. Opportunities you counted on will suddenly evaporate. The people closest to you will become your greatest critics, subtly mocking your ambition or expressing deep concern for your newfound obsession. This convergence of internal panic and external chaos is the legendary breaking point. This is the terrifying threshold where 99% of humanity surrenders. They interpret the resistance as a cosmic sign that they are on the wrong path, they lay down their weapons, and they retreat into the shadows. They fail to realize that this massive friction is not a sign of failure, and it is the ultimate undeniable proof that the old paradigm is finally dying. To conquer this breaking point, you must adopt a posture of fanatical, unyielding stubbornness. You must look into the teeth of the storm and flatly refuse to negotiate. When the anxiety hits, you hold the vision. When the fatigue sets in, you hold the vision. When your environment mocks you, you hold the vision with a burning, white-hot obsession that borders on madness. You must outlast the rebellion. The subconscious mind is a tyrant when challenged, but it is ultimately a mechanical servant. It possesses no will of its own. It only possesses momentum. It fights you simply because you are asking it to reverse a momentum it has maintained for years. But if you hold the line, if you repeatedly and aggressively force it to process the new identity, on day after brutal day without a single moment of compromise, the momentum begins to crack. Then the miracle occurs. If you withstand the crucible and refuse to break character, there comes a defining moment when the subconscious mind is utterly exhausted. It realizes that its rebellion is futile against your definite, unshakable will. In that glorious moment, the subconscious entirely surrenders. It submits to your new identity. And the second it surrenders, the entire polarity of your life flips. The very force that fought you with such terrifying violence now becomes your most powerful, tireless servant. The resistance vanishes, replaced by a breathtaking tailwind. The subconscious stops fighting you and begins working 24 hours a day to actively, magnetically, and effortlessly manifest your new reality. The war is won. You have conquered the inner kingdom, and the physical world has no choice but to lay its treasures at your feet. There is a pathetic, pervasive mindset that infects the masses and guarantees their perpetual failure. On the posture of the beggar. Millions of people approach the universe with cupped hands and bowed heads, whispering timid prayers, hoping for a lucky break, and wishing that success will somehow fall from the sky into their laps. They want wealth, they want power, they want freedom, but their desires are weak, formless, and soaked in doubt. Let me state a law of existence so absolute that it forms the foundation of all achievement. The universe is entirely deaf to your hopes, it is blind to your wishes, and it has absolute contempt for your begging. The forces of reality do not respond to a vague desire. They yield only to an absolute, unyielding, definite command. If you approach the architecture of your life like a victim asking for a favor, you will receive nothing but the scraps left behind by those who understand how to demand. To execute the 90-day identity shift, you must permanently eradicate the vocabulary of someday, maybe, and I hope from your consciousness. The subconscious mind is a literal, mechanical executor. If you feed it a hope that you will be successful in the future, it will faithfully keep your success suspended in the future, forever out of reach, always just one day away. To move the invisible gears of manifestation, your desire must be transmuted into a burning obsession, and that obsession must be forged into a definite demand. A command is not simply a loud voice or a forced affirmation shouted at a mirror. It is a silent, terrifying certainty that radiates from the core of your being. It is the absolute knowing that the outcome is already secured. When you issue a definite command, you burn the bridges of retreat. You eliminate the safety net. You do not ask reality if success is permissible. You inform reality that the new standard has already been set. This definite command begins with the construction of a flawless, crystalline mental image of the exact person you intend to become. You cannot command what you cannot clearly define. You must isolate yourself from the noise of the world and meticulously engineer the avatar of your highest self. What is the exact posture of this person? When they walk into a room, how do they command the space? What is the precise tone of their voice? How do they handle catastrophic news? What do they utterly refuse to tolerate in their business and personal life? You must define the psychology, the emotional baseline, and the physical mannerisms of this identity with such vivid, sensory perfection that it becomes more real to you than your own reflection. Defining the avatar, however, is only the preparation. The execution is in the assumption. You do not strive to become this person over the next 90 days. That is the language of the amateur. You assume their identity this very second. You must mentally step inside the skin of this new master and operate exclusively from their state of consciousness today. Your physical senses will violently object to this practice. Your eyes will look at your current circumstances and scream that you are lying to yourself. But the master understands that physical senses merely report the physical echoes of past thoughts. To command the future, you must turn your back on the sensory evidence of the present. When faced with a decision, you operate strictly from the vantage point of the identity whose reality is already fulfilled. You claim the victory in the present tense, moving with the quiet arrogance of a conqueror who knows the battle is won before the first shot is fired. When you issue this absolute definite command, when your thoughts, words, and actions are perfectly synchronized in the present tense reality of your new identity, the physical universe is placed in an intolerable state of cognitive dissonance. And it cannot sustain the contradiction between your absolute internal certainty and your current external limitations. Because you refuse to lower your internal standard to match the physical world is violently forced to rise to match your internal command. Reality bends, circumstances warp, and the invisible forces of nature scramble to materialize the exact conditions of the identity you have assumed. Do not ask for your dreams. Command them into existence with the supreme authority of a mind that has completely conquered itself.